Hello and welcome to it. You're watching #Africa. In the next 15 minutes, we'll take a comprehensive look at some of the stories that dominated headlines across the continent. South Africa has slipped into its first technical recession since 2009. The economy contracted by 0.7%, but the finance minister says there's no need for panic. The ANC is confident it can pull the country out of recession. The party's subcommittee on economic transformation prompted government to immediately institute a stimulus package. Now, among the policy interventions are tax credits for companies that invest in sustainable job creation. Let's head on over to the Democratic Republic of Congo now, where former Vice President Jean-Pierre Bemba will not be participating in the upcoming election in December. The country's highest court this week barred the former warlord from the poll. Bemba will also be sentenced later this month in the International Court in The Hague. He's been found guilty of bribing witnesses during his war crimes trial in 2016. Right, let's explore our relationship with China now. The country will invest over $60 billion in Africa over the next 3 years. President Xi Jinping was speaking at the Forum for China-Africa Cooperation in Beijing. He added that China's investment in Africa comes with no political strings attached. More than 40 African presidents and about 1,000 business people descended on the Chinese capital, where several trade agreements were signed. Let's explore this further. I'm joined now on the line by Mr. Mthuli Ncube. Mr. Ncube, thank you so much for joining us. It's rare to find a relationship with no strings attached these days. What would you say the true cost of our relationship is with China?
In terms of cost, look, at the moment, China is a source of capital for everyone in the world. China is investing in Africa, in Europe, in Latin America, and even the $60 billion that the Chinese have pledged is very small compared to what they're investing around the world. It's one of the largest buyers of U.S. American Treasury bills at the moment. So really, that capital, in my view, is needed by Africa. I think the issue is, do Africans then understand how to use it effectively, how to negotiate effectively, how to do the right debt management, processes to make sure that they're able to pay back the monies that are involved. But the monies themselves are actually welcome, in my view.
Indeed, it's about how we actually negotiate this. But why would a corruption-intolerant country pump so much money into a continent that is plagued by corruption?
Corruption is everywhere. It's not an African problem. In some countries, actually, institutionalized is called lobbying. Then you've got professional lobbyists. It's everywhere in different forms. And I think really over time you've seen Africa corruption in terms of perception and reality come down quite a lot over the years. So to me, that really shouldn't be the worry right now. I think the worry is whether these countries are able to come up with strategies for using these monies effectively, being able to pay back, being able to create joint ventures between investors from China and local investors for sustainability and create jobs on the ground. Ethiopia is a good example of how this can be done. I know that in the shoe manufacturing sector, there's a Chinese company that is employing almost 8,000 Ethiopians producing world-class shoes for export into the US and into Europe. So it can be done effectively.
But Ethiopia is the exception to the rule. We do know that in some other parts of the continent, when Chinese firms come in, they bring their own labor. How do we make sure that we actually get this to trickle to ground level and create that employment?
It's very important for any foreign investor, Chinese or otherwise, to create jobs where they're investing in generate goodwill, but also the local labor tends to be cheaper as well. And then what you saw at the beginning of the foray of China into Africa, companies were bringing in Chinese labor, but that is beginning to change. They've been listening, and that is what I'm seeing in terms of evidence, and they're beginning to create jobs locally. I use the example of Ethiopia, which has worked very well. But also there's another imperative, which is if you win a contract to build a road, and you need to deliver within a certain period of time, it's time-bound, we may have to use the best strategies possible to deliver that road as fast as possible and be able to win new contracts in future and not deliver on the current contract. So I'm surprised from time to time to see Chinese companies, in the example that I've given, using Chinese workers, because then they're able to control them better and deliver projects on time. But even that is changing. Yes, we need to see the right blend of Chinese labor and local labor being utilized in various projects.
How do we hold our leaders to account? A number of countries on the continent, in terms of infrastructure, have not come far, and that's just one example. But monies have been pumped into the continent, but they're not used for what they're intended.
Well, you know what? There's a lot of hidden debt, some of which has come out in a few countries where they borrowed money from China and other places. Really, what this calls for is a more transparent budgetary process, a more transparent external balances process. So the process of holding leaders to account usually works through the parliamentary system, making sure that the finance committee do their job in making sure that these contracts, these financial balances are revealed. So we need to be at that level. But also, there is external pressure as well, where countries with IMF or World Bank programs or LG programs tend to kind of compelled to reveal the state of their finances, and often things come out. But also rating agencies put pressure as well as external agents for disclosure. So there are many points, angles through which there could be better disclosure. But really the bottom line is that African countries must learn to negotiate better on these contracts. That would help a lot. By the way, the African Development Bank has got the Africa Legal Support Facility, which is free for African countries to make use of in order to negotiate better across the table. Do
they make use of it, and how will we pay this huge amount back?
I don't think African countries are making enough use of that African Legal Support Facility. They should do more for all their contracts, and that they can get better terms in terms that the economy is able to support in terms of the interest rates that they have to pay back on. So really that is the issue. But also just having robust public sector risk management systems, debt sustainability systems in place will enable countries to manage this debt burden better. There's no other way around it except to manage it better and negotiate better.
That was Mthuli Ncube. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. Coming up after the break, we take a look at what's trending on social media, including the Nyege Nyege Music Festival currently taking place in Uganda. Welcome back. Migrants in North Africa are facing yet another danger. Fighting between armed gangs is complicating their already dire situation in Libya. This week, hundreds of migrants who fled violence in Tripoli were relocated to a detention center.
An increasing number of migrants trapped in Libya are prey to smugglers and traffickers who sell them as labor. In addition to this, they are now battling armed groups and criminal gangs which are becoming stronger. On top of it all, Europe, their preferred destination, is clamping down on migration. Libya is a major departure point for African migrants crossing the Mediterranean Sea to Europe. It's believed that of the more than 650,000 migrants, at least 9,000 are in detention centers. This number has doubled in recent months due to increased Coast Guard crackdowns.
There was no bathroom. They were dirty. We did not have a shower for 3, 4, 5 days, and when we asked about the manager, no one answered us. That's why we escaped and came here. One was shot when we were coming here.
Most of these migrants were jailed after the Libyan Coast Guard intercepted their makeshift boats bound for Italy. With fighting entering its second week, the United Nations says armed factions have reached a ceasefire. But militias have ignored previous calls by the UN-backed government to lay down their arms.
Right, let's see what's been trending on social media. There's been an uproar over a picture of African leaders attending this week's China-Africa summit. Social media users were not impressed by the continent's delegation not having notepads while the Chinese delegates had theirs. About 90 elephants have been found dead near a wildlife sanctuary in Botswana. Many of them had their tusks removed. British Prime Minister Theresa May tweeted about the poaching frenzy. The country's authorities have refuted the claim, saying it's fake news. And we wrap up in Uganda, where the Nyege Nyege Music Festival is drawing huge crowds. The country's ethics minister, Simon Lokodo, had previously banned it, labeling it an orgy of homosexuality, nudity and drugs. However, after a huge public outcry, the government did an about-turn. The festival attracts more than 200 artists from across the continent and around the world and takes place annually on the banks of the Nile River. Looks like one for the bucket list. And finally, scholar Namwai wants to change the way people view fashion in Kenya. The Nairobi costume designer says her ideas are a blend of real stories and fantasy.
Namwai creates intricate costumes for special occasions. She's created pieces for theatre performances and most recently film.
Most of the things I make, I basically do it from scratch. I design my prints and I paint some of them. It's very personal and everything has an inspiration. I don't wake up in the morning and copy designs from Fashion 101 or magazines. I always have an inspiration for everything I make, and there's a story behind every design.
This particular dress was inspired by environmentalist and Nobel Prize laureate Wangari Maathai and her love for nature. It was chosen for one of the top 40 contestants for the Miss World pageant in 2016.
She loved trees so much that every time she was in the mood to celebrate, she would plant a tree. And she would not just plant any tree, she would plant a tree called the Nandi Flame. And the Nandi Flame is an indigenous tree which has these beautiful red, orange, yellowish flowers that when the tree is in flower, it looks like it's in flame.
Namwai's hard work has landed her jobs that are not easy to get. Her latest project was leading the costume design team for the award-winning Kenyan film, Supermodel.
There's no harm in a little pretending.
Opportunities for costume designers in Kenya's vibrant, emerging film industry are few and far between.
Big.
Namwai is planning to go to business school in Europe to learn more about the art as a sustainable enterprise. The biggest challenge, she says, is making money out of it.
I feel that we are not taking the initiative we need to take to learn how to run a business. We are talented, but at the end of the day, everybody else has talent. So how do you set yourself apart from the next person? How do you market yourself? How do you set your margins? It all depends on us designers, because there are designers who are making it here. So why aren't the rest of us making it big?
Namwai says her designs are not just clothes, they are art.
Very wise words. All the best to her. And that brings us to the end of this week's show. Do stay tuned to ENCA for all the latest news. Take care and goodbye.